When I react, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the one reacting just to you. When I comment, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the one commenting on you. Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of An Anthropologist Breaks Down Foodie Beauty. Yeah, Dark Anthropology, ooh. So, I've been meaning to do something like this, and this is going to be like a very rough draft of things I've been thinking about when it comes to the whole Foodie Beauty, aka Chantel, aka Miriam. I don't know if she's still doing that one, but we're going to use that one for a reason, and I'll explain it. But I've been meaning to kind of start breaking Foodie down in the dark anthropology landscape, right? And that's mainly because, like, we've talked about Amber a lot about that, and I think have I done one on Anna yet? Have I done one on Anna? Oh dear. Anyway, my point is I've done a lot of Amberlynn ones where I point out that Amber is intentionally doing a lot of things. Amber interacts intentionally with her audience. Does she slip up? Yes. Is she good at the manipulation? Up to you guys to decide. The point is, Amber is a conscious participator in it, right? And I personally think she's functional. She's good at it. I think she's good at it. And I also think, like, the closer you are to her, the easier it is for her to manipulate you, right? And then we have Chantel. And I thought that might be a really good way to, like, compare and contrast, because Foodie and Amber have both been online doing this shit for the same length of time, give or take. And they've both had varying degrees of success. A lot of times people will compare the two of them together, like the whole, like, who's wearing the crown of girl world right now? Is it Foodie or Amber kind of a thing? And fortunately, when one of them is going through some kind of drama, the other one's relatively quiet. And as soon as this one gets quiet, the other one starts doing something. So they kind of like trade back and forth as far as who has the most attention in girl world kind of a thing. So I think this is a long time coming, and I need to, like, slowly piece it together, but I'd like to take you guys along on the journey and also get your guys' feedback. So, people have opinions. I want to hear them. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my members. You guys rock. Thank you to everybody who's been putting up with my sick voice. Somebody said I was sultry. Thank you. Because to me, I sound like I'm talking through gravel. But I do have a voice. It can be used, so we're putting it back to work, eh? Today is November the 8th. Just giving people a timeline here, and we are going to talk about Foodie. I have notes. If you see me glancing off to the side, that's because I'm reading them. There you have it. So, anthropologically, Chantel's online presence is marked by the attempt at manipulation of her audience. She tries to use emotional storytelling, conflict, and attention-seeking behaviors to navigate the complexities of digital life. I have flowery notes, by the way. This is where Foodie starts to run into issues, because Foodie understands that conflict and sensationalism draw viewers to her channel. And this is noticeable in one of the last videos. She puts up a lot of videos. One of the last videos she put up where she was asking for a friend about what her friend should do about her boyfriend cheating on her. And it becomes very apparent through that video that she's talking about herself, but it's in such a weird way that, in my opinion, it becomes very clear that she's making up a story. She knows that there's a history of cheating between her and her current partner, Sala, and she knows that when she and Sala are having problems, she gets a spike in views. Currently, things seem to be okay with them, so she decided to fabricate a safe drama, right? And to do that, she, like, set herself back a ways from it by saying my friend, and then forgetting that it was supposed to be her friend, and saying me more than once. And therein is her inability to be good at this, right? She's trying to manufacture outrage. She's trying to manufacture some kind of spectacle, but there's clearly nothing wrong going on between her and Sala right now, right? We know what her behavior looks like when there is. We know what Sala's behavior looks like when there is. And that's simply just not the behavior we're seeing from them. And here's the other kicker. Since she is constantly online, we pretty much know what's going on, right? She's like literally constantly online. If she's not doing a 3 or 4 hour live, she's posting videos. She's always online. If she's not doing one of those two things, she's trolling other people's feeds. She's commenting on other people's videos. She's picking fights with other reaction channels. We know what her day-to-day looks like, right? So we know that this, or at least I think, that this last, asking for a friend storyline is but it is an attempt of hers to manufacture some kind of controversy because she's trying to drum up views to her channel. It's fine. That's what she wants to do. That's how she runs her channel. But this is how Foodie interprets the interactions with her channel, thinking that her viewers value spectacle and sensationalism over authenticness with her. And she uses these controversies as a way to manipulate, control, have power over not only her audience, but in a way, Sala himself and the other actors in her life, which is why she doesn't have too many of them. Same reason Amber doesn't. Now, again, my argument is that Foodie is not as good at it as Amber is. Y'all may disagree with me, but here we are. All right, so let's go over a few things here. So first I want to talk about, and I'm playing with slime, by the way. First I want to talk about Chantel's online identity. And, I mentioned Miriam early, and I was like, we'll get back to that. So the reason we'll get back to that is Chantel, when she embraced the Muslim culture, Muslim religion, and decided to move to Kuwait with Sala because they had insta-married or something. I don't know. I still don't understand the whole timeline of that because it's not real, but here we are. She reinvented herself and was calling herself Miriam. I think it's not an uncommon thing for reverts to rename themselves. I think it's even something that's done in, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's also something that's done in some of the Jewish traditions where the woman will rename herself or the husband will rename the wife, things like that. But anyway, it's a symbolic acceptance of the individual into the new family, into the new culture, that kind of a thing. So Chantel reinvented herself when she moved to Kuwait and was calling herself Miriam. Miriam's a beautiful name. I have nothing wrong with it. I think Chantel's a beautiful name. So both names for me are very nice. This allows us, though, a way of dividing Foodie's behavior up. We're going to use Foodie Beauty as the umbrella for these two online personas, right? Because there are two distinct online personas for Foodie. There is Chantel, who we all know and love. Chantel is the one that farts on camera, chews with her mouth open, says things that should not be said out loud on camera, does all the controversial things, is just an absolute bee to people, says rude, nasty things to other individuals, is very focused on the need for women to have a man in their life in order to have any value. She's also incredibly judgmental of mothers, and will go after people's families. That's Chantel. And then we have Miriam. And Miriam was supposed to be the perfect convert, right? Or revert, as she refers to herself. Miriam was supposed to be godly, follows the Quran, follows traditions, is embracing her new role in this religion, is following God, is listening to the message that God is sending her. Miriam was supposed to have more of a desire to become healthy and to better herself, and was supposed to be the perfect wife and the perfect partner. So Miriam is Foodie's ideal version of herself, right? A lot of people refer to Chantel's low BMI voice. That's in this case, we're going to clump that in with Miriam, right? I think she had her low BMI voice before she had Miriam, but here we are. We have Miriam now, right? So there's our two there's our two Foodie beauty personas. We have Chantel and we have Miriam. We see Chantel more than we see Miriam, but Miriam is important, right? So that's the digital persona and the way Foodie seems to break up her online identity. Now, things to keep in mind. Even though I say Foodie is nearly 24 hours online, even though I say this, and even though I say we can tell what's going on because she shows us almost constantly what she's doing, right? She does not appear to have any kind of life outside of the internet. Even though I say these things, we must understand video, even live video, is inherently manipulative. And I say this because you will only see what you are allowed to see, right? There might be in the lives a slip up here or a kerfluffle there or any of that kind of stuff. But the reality is you only see what that camera is focused on, right? If something's happening behind the camera, you have no idea. If something's happening in the room next door, you have no idea. If she's wearing an earpiece and we can't hear FBI Frank talking to her in her ear, we don't know. That's the point. We don't know everything. And that aspect of the we don't know, that's the aspect that Foodie has control over, right? And that's the manipulative part of the video. Even this video, my video, you're only seeing what I want you to see. You don't see what's behind this thing. I didn't show you my slime. I probably should. It's really cool. Anyway, my point being, you only see what I want you to see, right? Obviously my hair needs to be dyed. Does it really? Or did I just frost my roots? Point being, I'll get my point. So there are points in this discussion where we're going to say things like, we have to take Foodie at her word, because Foodie is our first and primary informant in her own life. We can say that Sala is a secondary informant because he does have some agency outside of Foodie's videos. He does have his own channel. I don't watch it, but he does have his own channel. He will interact with the community online on his own. And so that does allow him to be a reliable secondary informant. There are other people that we can classify as informants within reason. If they're reliable or not, it's another story. But there are people who have interacted with Chantel, with Foodie, and who have come forward with their stories about it. Most recently, I'm thinking of Aisha, I think her name is, who used to be a online friend of Foodie's, who has recently turned on Foodie. And so that person has been coming forward with information about Foodie. Again, this is an informant. This is like a tertiary informant. And when it comes to informants, especially oral informants, we have to take everybody at their word, because it is entirely possible that all three of them could have a completely different view on a situation, and yet all three of them are correct. This is the fun of oral histories. So, and the concept of truth. There is no truth. There's only perception. So here we are. So that's a digital persona and the identity construction of Foodie, Chantel, and Miriam. And we will be referring to the three of them. I will try my best not to say Chantel when I mean Foodie. I might slip up a few times just because Chantel is actually Foodie's real name. Foodie's shtick. I'm not entirely sure when Foodie moved out of being just like an online mukbanger who wasn't really good at the job into using manipulation as a social strategy. I want to say it was around the Buttholes era. I don't have a good name for him, and I don't want to say his real name because he's like Voldemort. But anyway. So before she started dating Sala, she dated another guy who was in Canada. He was an immigrant. You know who I'm talking about. If you don't, ask the comment section. They'll probably bring him up. He was not a good person. Still is not a good person. But he's still an aspect of Chantel's life. Not Miriam's, Chantel's. All right? I feel like around the time that she began to date him, which was after she broke up with her partner who she had been with when she started her channel, whose name was BB. We called him BB. She broke up with him, moved in with her ex/best friend, Pete's, also not his real name. They lived together, I don't know, for a year in what people refer to as the lived with Pete in what people were calling the luxury condo. It was just a nice condo that her and Pete trashed. But somewhere around that time, she started moving away from just trying to be like a personality on the internet into using manipulation as a social strategy. And she was doing that by trying to convince her audience that she was doing certain things when she wasn't doing certain things, like trying to convince her audience that she was indeed worried about her health and she was going to do various forms of diets to get control of her health. And then when that inevitably failed within 24 hours, she would then turn outward to find an excuse for it. It's very rarely Foodie's fault that Foodie doesn't follow through with her health journeys or anything like that. It's usually everyone else's fault. I don't know who you are, but it's probably your fault somehow. And it's around this time that we started learning that Foodie has a very defiant personality. And what I mean when I say that is, if you want Chantel to do something, the best way to get her to do it is to tell her not to do it. So, and during this time where she's transitioning out of girl next door vlogging with BB into the nightmare that was Foodie until Sala, I will say her shit has straightened out a little bit with Sala. Not a lot, but some. That whole period of her life, which was a significant chunk of it, of her online life, around that time is when, because she was being manipulative and she was trying to grow an audience, she was trying to build a community online. Like, she had goals in mind. She was trying to use YouTube as her major form of income. And she was making good money, I think. She was definitely making it around Natter's era. Ooh, shit, I said his name. It's around this time that she started developing the community that she has right now. She started referring to her followers as Beezers. And the Beezers are not necessarily good influences on Foodie's life. And this is around the time that we start seeing people who, in her Beezers, or just people commenting in her lives, because she was doing a lot of lives, and she still does. But they will comment on her and they will express concern, or, you know, you shouldn't do that, or this isn't good for your health, or anything. Don't dye your hair pink. And she would go, I'm gonna go dye my hair pink. She never dyed her hair pink, but I'm just kind of putting that out there. A lot of this kind of is accentuated with her really shitty pet ownership, which a lot of that, and I think that's true today because she also has another cat. I think a lot of the bad pet ownership comes from people telling her, don't do that to your animals, or you should do XYZ for your animals, or yada, yada, yada. And because she's defiant, she does the exact opposite. All right. So around this time, going back to pre-Sala era, let's put it that way. Post BB, pre-Sala. Foodie starts putting out a lot of... Oh, you okay, bud? You're the one that jumped down. Foodie starts putting out a lot of emotional appeals to her audience. Starts asking them a lot of questions. What do you guys think I should do? And then starts telling us various aspects of her personal life. And when people are like, hey, don't do that, she immediately turns around and does it anyway. And then comes back on camera, kind of giggling like a kid who is gleefully telling you how they broke the rules, right? And for her, it's clearly entertaining to her that she's doing this. Like, she would come back online and tell us about the illicit substances she was partaking in. And of course, her audience would be like, don't do that. And she would be like, oh, I'm not going to do it again, you guys. I'm not going to do it again. And then she would come back on and be like, I might have done it again. Kind of a thing. And this is actually a form of manipulation, a form of control, because she realized that her audience had some kind of emotional connection with her, right? You don't typically reach out to people and say, hey, take care of yourself, if you don't have at least some bit of care for them, right? I'm not saying that you're like ready to go rescue them like a white knight, but you're just kind of like, hey, as a human to another human, don't do that. It's bad for your health, you know? And it's around this time that she started learning that when she does these kind of things, she gets a reaction from her audience that is beneficial to her. Maybe not just in views, she was getting a lot of views, but she also got the attention. And Foodie, we talk about how Amber has a parasocial relationship with her audience. Foodie definitely has a parasocial relationship with her audience. I don't think Foodie has real world friends. I think she and for a long time, I know her friend pool has come from her beezers, her online people that she's never met. And I'm not saying you can't have good friendships with people online that you've never met, but these are like 6-month-old relationships with people, and suddenly they're like, they're my best friend. It's like, you don't know anything about these people, which has come back to bite her in the ass on more than one occasion. So we're not going to go into those. That's not the point of this. But she learned early that she could emotionally manipulate her audience with her behavior, with the things that she says, and she received the attention that she wanted from that. And it also bolstered her pocketbook, right? So she learned early, for her that controversy and manipulation were like the coin of her channel. And from that point, whether this is a true personality trait of Chantel, I don't know, or if this is a personality trait that Chantel developed over time, but we start seeing I would say a meaner version of Foodie than we had seen prior. And when she started to be called on this bad behavior, and her audience is like, hey, why are you doing that? Don't do that. That's mean. Or she will say things. People will be like, don't say that. That's, it's just not something you should say. That's mean. That's rude. That's any other word. Lots of isms are thrown out there. She would get very defensive about this. And why are you guys attacking me? What have I done? I'm always the one in trouble. She pulls the same thing that Amber would pull with the whole, like, other YouTubers do it. Why are you guys attacking me? Kind of a thing. And, well, it's because we're watching you. It's your audience. We're not anybody else's audience. We're your audience. So we're going to address your behavior, not someone else's. And B, it's because her behavior was actually abnormal compared to other successful vloggers that she would like to compare herself to. But again, by becoming defensive about it and by trying to, like, I'm rubber, you're glue kind of things, it created interaction with her audience, right? Her audience would say things and she would react to them, and they would say things and she would react to them. And so that created her social structure. Her social world is her viewers, right? She has no social structure outside of that. Where Foodie starts to be not good at the online manipulation and the control of her online world. I believe we call it the Foodieverse. Shantopolis, my bad. Chantel's Foodie Beauty's world is called the Shantopolis. I mean, you'll see people do Shantopolis updates. I think Foodie's the one that coined Shantopolis, but anyway, that's the name of that world. She doesn't have a lot of control over her Shantopolis, if we will. She likes to think she does, and she likes it when it seems like she does, right? But Chantel is very reactive, and it's very easy to get a reaction out of her. And this is where her parasocial relationship with her audience comes into play. Her audience early on learned that they could goad her into doing things. And I'm not entirely sure if this qualifies as cow tipping, being interacting with someone who's considered a lol cow by basically in like causing them to do things or encouraging them to do things. But it kind of feels that way. But you would, especially when she was still living at the luxury condo with Pete's, she would do these weird lives where she would go driving. And sometimes she was under the influence, sometimes she was not, allegedly. And so her audience, though there were many of them who were like, why are you doing this? This is bad. Don't do that. And of course, she's being defiant. And so, of course, she's doing them because people are telling her not to. You shouldn't drive while under the influence. I'm not under the influence, you guys. I can handle it. Famous last words. She would also have people at the same time who would be encouraging her to do it. They'll be like, oh, you know what you're doing. You've done this before. You've got this. Or, hey, why don't you go do XYZ? Or basically a double dog dare you to go do something. And so she'd be like, yeah, I'll go do that thing. And it would cause her behavior in those situations to escalate to the point where she was just absolutely ridiculous online. This encouragement of her bad behavior, of course, created more bad behavior. It also started to blur the lines with her as to what was and was not acceptable on a platform like YouTube, because that's her main platform. And so Foodie started to get into trouble with the then terms of services with YouTube. And she tried to branch out to other social media things, like she started an OnlyFans, and I think she had a Twitch for a while, and I think she was on Twitter for like a hot second, and I feel like she had an Instagram. Like, she tried all of them out, basically. And none of them worked for her as well as YouTube did, because YouTube is where she built her audience. And then, you know, if that's your main platform, that's usually where the largest chunk of your audience is going to be. So since she built everything on YouTube and did not spend the time to really build up the other social medias that she had, she was never able to get a foot into the other social medias, because each platform is varyingly different, even though they're all kind of starting to become the same thing. Anyway, another discussion for another time. But so she started to do things that were skirting the edge of the terms of service on YouTube. But this is another point where she is trying to manipulate. This is where she thinks she is in control of the situation. She thinks the power dynamics are in her hand, because a lot of the things that she would do that would violate TOS would just go unnoticed, and they would go unpunished. And because there was no repercussion for her behavior at the time, she assumed that she was the one in control of the situation and that she could do whatever she wanted, basically. And it worked for her for a while, until she finally really effed up. And her channel actually got terminated for a short period of time. And that was an amazing moment. Like, I didn't celebrate when Foodie's channel got taken down. I was just kind of like, oh, that's how this ends. I was not expecting that. But I'm also not surprised. Somehow she was able to petition YouTube in order to get her channel back. And she did. She got her channel back completely, with all of her videos, all of her views. I think the one video that is I think it was a live that she got in trouble with. She was on Omegle. I don't know if you know what that is. I vaguely know what it is, but it's kind of like a random chat thing, and some kid flashed her on camera live. which is a no-no. And that got her canceled. I got her channel terminated, as it probably should have. Of course, we can go over the number of things that probably should have gotten her channel terminated before that point, but here we are. Anyway, I think she took that video down and YouTube was like, okay, you can have a second chance. And since then, she's kind of cleaned up her act, I guess we could say. We could speculate. Not as much as she did, though, when she met Sala. Oh, we're not there yet. All right, so I don't know exactly what she pulled to get her channel back. I'm vaguely interested, but I also don't know exactly how invested I am in the exact terms of what got her back on YouTube. I am, but I'm not. But either way, that experience bolstered her. Well, she learned two things from it. She learned that she had gone too far. And so she finally learned where that push is, right? But she also learned how close to that edge she could get. And for a while there, she really flirted with the edge of that, right? She was really pushing it. And it was egged on by her audience, both telling her, hey, don't do that. And her audience being like, ooh, what would happen if you do this? Or just encouraging the bad behavior in general, right? A lot of times she would talk about edibles and various substances that are legal in Canada, not necessarily legal in the US, that she would partake in. And her audience would go along with it. They'd chat with her about it. They'd tell her various forms of this substance that she hadn't tried yet, and maybe she would like to do that, or, you know, tell her different ways of getting hold of certain things if she wanted them, sort of a thing. And that, in my opinion, is her audience encouraging her bad behavior. And since it's a behavior she wants to participate in, she took that as encouragement, right? So this is an interesting twist on the power dynamic that we talk about a lot when it comes to, well, with Amber and her audience. Amber's power dynamic with her audience is that Amber controls her narrative through her videos, right? We see what Amber wants us to see. And lately it's not been a lot. I mean, not since Tommy, but before Tommy, we weren't really seeing a whole lot of Amber's life. And that was a way of Amber controlling the narrative around herself, because Amber has a lot of people who speculate about things about her. Some people just make shit up about her. She has a lot of problems in general. Foodie is very much the same way, but Foodie isn't good at curating her image online. Again, I go back to, she's always online. And if she's not online, she's commenting on things, she's making posts, she's going after other reactors, publicly doing these things, right? Not that it would be better if she was doing it privately. It's just, it's so much more noticeable when you're doing it publicly. And that she's doing, in my opinion, doing these things because it gives her an outlet, right? She's a very angry person, in my opinion. And this gives her an outlet for that anger. And she thinks in the moment, because again, she's very reactive, very easy to set off, very reactive. And she feels in that moment of rage, that she is in the right. And if when she posts or says something, she gets a lot of positive feedback for it, she'll tend to lean into that, right? If she gets a lot of negative feedback, which is more often than not, she will oftentimes just delete it. These things don't exist anymore. The problem with Chantel is she's got a lot of people with a lot of eyes on her. People are recording things. There are people out there that manage to record almost everything she puts up, which, more power to you, man. She puts up 3 to 5 hour lives. I'm not doing that shit. But even though she tries, this is her trying to control her narrative, trying to control her persona, trying to control what people see of her online, Chantel, for whatever reason, believes if she deletes it off of her account, it's gone. The internet is forever. So even though she's deleted things, I would say the majority of it gets caught somehow. Either somebody's screen recording it, somebody's downloading the videos, however it happens. People are used to Chantel's behavior of rage posting and then instantly deleting it, to the point where if they see something go up, they just save it because there's a good chance it's not going to be there later. There have been accounts of people reacting to Foodie, reacting to a video of Foodie's that gets taken down while they are reacting to it. So this is a very common practice for her. And that's her way of controlling her narrative. Unlike Amber, who doesn't typically delete a lot of stuff. Amber has had several videos taken down recently, but they were taken down by YouTube. Amber herself did not remove them. Amber, when things don't fit into whatever narrative she's working on at the time, she just ignores them. They don't exist. She doesn't take the videos down. She doesn't typically remove the posts. There's only been a handful of things that she has herself taken down. She usually just ignores it. It doesn't exist, right? If you bring it up, she'll either pretend like you didn't say anything, or she'll come up with some way of twisting the narrative around so that it now matches what she's doing. Foodie isn't good at that. She's not good at thinking on her feet. She's not good at changing the story in a way that will support her new narrative, right? So her way of handling it is she just deletes it. Again, internet's forever, so people can bring these things up, and she then, because she's very reactive, she then gets angry that people are bringing up things that she has deleted, because in her head, those things don't exist anymore. So if you're bringing them up, then it's an attack. Well, it usually is an attack, but because it is an attack, she takes it negatively. She responds in kind. We get another rage, another set of rages, comments, posts, and the cycle just repeats, basically. She has many cycles that are very predictable. She's in one currently. So all of this shows an interesting power dynamic that we don't see with Amber. Amber is not that reactive to her audience. Amber is very good at ignoring her audience. Not as good as Anna, but she is good at ignoring her audience. Foodie is controlled by her audience, in my opinion. She seems to be at her audience's mercy a lot of times. And it's gotten better-ish since she's moved to Kuwait and she's married Salah, and she has reinvented herself as Miriam. This is where Miriam comes in now. But up until Miriam, and I think Miriam is better because Salah has some influence. Some. Not much, some. But up until this point, Chantel was very reactive to her audience, and it was very easy for her audience to set her off. They knew that. It was documented. We even knew what words and things would set her off. Like, it was easy to do. We being the audience, not me. So that, I think, was an interesting shift of power dynamics, because even though Chantel likes to pretend like she had control over her audience and she had control over her narrative, and she would try to deny things if they don't work for her. Like, she still does it. She denies, but like, she's so bad at lying. And she doesn't think well on her feet. She's not a fast thinker. If she has time to think about it, she can usually work something out. Thinking on her feet, she's not that good at it, right? And so she gets caught out a lot on things. Not only just her behavior in general, but when people bring things up to her, she gets caught out on them because she can't think her way out of it. And this is her audience having power over her. Because at the same time that the audience knows how to rile her up, the audience also provides her with the thing that she really wants, which is attention. She likes the money, don't get me wrong. I think she would still be doing this even if she didn't get money. She wants the attention more than she wants the money. Hi, bud. How are you? That's exactly what everybody wanted to see. Right. So I think she would still be doing this even without the money if she was getting the attention, because I think it's the attention she wants more. She views her audience as her only social outlet, and she views these people as her friends, which has come up more than once recently even. So we're not going to talk about Dee Dee. Let's recap here. Foodie and her parasocial relationship with her audience, she doesn't have the upper hand when it comes to her audience. She doesn't have control over her audience. The power dynamic actually is reversed when it comes to Chantel and her audience, and so is the parasocial relationship. she is more reliant on her audience than her audience is reliant on her. She's also easily manipulated by her audience, even though she thinks she's the one manipulating the audience. Her audience knows how to play her. She's not entirely sure or good at playing the audience. Again, this comes up with the most recent video where she's, my friend needs advice. No. First off, never happened. Secondly, you're talking about yourself. And it's obvious. She also pulls this stuff with when she talks about her diet. Now, this is the Miriam aspect. So Miriam's not any good at it either. But Miriam is a lot more reserved, a lot more demure. There was a whole thing about that. And so, but Miriam's still Foodie. Miriam still has Chantel in there. Miriam's just the nicer side, right? The good girl, right? But Miriam's the one that talks to us about Foodie's health. Miriam is the one that is trying to improve her health. She's the one that's trying to walk on the treadmill 10 times a day, or 10 minutes a day, 3 times a day. One of that came out correctly. Miriam is the one that's trying to diet for her health. Miriam is the one that's taking the medication because she's trying to get her diabetes under control and whatever else is wrong with her under control, right? Miriam's the one that's trying to do things, but even Miriam is bad at manipulating and having a power dynamic over the audience. The audience still has more control over Miriam than Miriam does the audience. And we see that particular dynamic happen when Miriam talks about health a lot. Foodie is under the impression that she's freaking immortal and that nothing's going to kill her. I tend to agree. I say this a lot, but the world will end and there will be cockroaches, Twinkies, and Chantel. Those will be the things that survive. So, because nothing seems to affect her. What we see, though, is, recently, the most recent health scare is that Foodie went into the hospital in Kuwait because her blood sugar was astronomical. And she basically got stabilized while she was in the hospital. And the doctor there prescribed her basically a diabetics diet, a very low carb, low sugar, no sugar, low sodium, I believe, diet, right? Something to try to get her outrageously out of control diabetes under control. And I think for about 3 days, Foodie was able to follow the diet and talk about, I think it actually scared her. She actually got scared about that one because she felt the effects of it that time. A lot of times she doesn't feel the effects of things. And so she was actually scared this time. That was earlier in the year, maybe late last year. Recently, she's been talking about trying to get her diet under control again and how Salah's going to be the one in control. He's going to be telling her, yes, no, she can't eat this, she can't eat that. And she's going to try to lose weight. She's going to weigh herself in every Wednesday. This has gone on for, I want to say, about a month. And though she did initially lose a pound, I believe she has gained 5, maybe almost 10 pounds at this point. So a lot. But when she comes online and she tells us, I'm starting a new cycle, I'm getting back on the horse, I know I gained weight, I know I wasn't following the diet. When she comes on and she tells us about all of this, she then tries to tell us about how she's going to address the problem, which anybody else, this would be the right way to do it, right? You fell off the horse, you acknowledge where you went wrong, you make a plan to not do that again, and you progress forward, right? Unfortunately with Chantel, she tries to bend the rules or warp the rules or just the advice that the doctor has given her in order to make it fit what she wants it to be. Chantel doesn't want to actually have to monitor her eating or stop eating certain things or just in general really take care of herself. And so she will tell the audience things like, oh, my doctor said I can have a serving of rice a day. Okay, A serving of rice for her is 2 cups. That's not a serving of rice, but she will just tell you that it is. Well, you know, I'm only having a serving of rice. It's about 2 cups of rice. That is not a serving of rice, madam. Same kind of thing. Like, she has an addiction to cheese. I think she just eats the cheese to annoy everyone. I mean, yeah, we all like cheese, but she knows that when she eats cheese, it upsets the audience, and the audience gets on her about the cheese eating. Again, this is attention. Another thing with Chantel is she doesn't know the difference between positive and negative attention, or she doesn't care about the difference. She just wants the attention. So she'll come on, oh, I'm eating cheese. And the audience is like, don't eat cheese. Weren't you told not to do that? You know, you shouldn't do that. It's high fat, high sodium, blah, blah. It's all the things the doctor told you not to do. And then she'll say things like, oh, but I'm rationing it. I'm only having an ounce of cheese a day, or whatever her limit was. And Salah's going to make sure that I don't. He's going to have a cheese accountability check-in to make sure I'm not overeating cheese. This is the strategy. Where the best strategy is get rid of the cheese, Chantel wants to twist the rules around so that she can still have cheese. Unfortunately, with Chantel, she doesn't have a lot of control, a lot of self-control over herself, or her binging problems, or her eating habits. So having trigger foods, if you will, in the house is just a recipe for disaster for her, whether Saul is there or not. But again, she knows saying these things upsets the audience reacts to it, she gets attention, good or bad. If it's bad attention, she reacts negatively to it. We get a rage. There's things that are posted, things that are deleted. We come all the way back to the beginning again, and we'll get another video of, oh, I fell off the horse, but I'm going to get back on it this time. And this time, you guys, this time, by the grace of God, I might be able to lose weight. So that's Foodie's cycle in a nutshell there. But that was also trying to explain how she's really bad at manipulating her audience, because her audience knows and remembers what the doctor told her. And when she says things counter to that, she will argue with her audience. No, my doctor said I could do this. No, he didn't. No, my doctor said I could have yada, yada, yada. No, he didn't. He specifically said you shouldn't eat those things. Those are the things you should not be eating. Or she'll pull something like, oh, well, I have BED, so it's not a good idea for me to restrict myself when it comes to the foods that I crave because it might cause a binge. I don't have that. I don't know. But I still think if you have trigger foods, the best way to deal with that is to not have it in the house. I might be crazy. I don't think I am in this aspect. So this is just another way that she tries to manipulate the audience. The audience is more knowledgeable than she is in this case, or it just won't be, they just won't be gaslit by her. And so her manipulation of her audience is just not successful. So we have covered Foodie. We have covered her online personas of Chantel and Miriam. We have covered her motivations and why she does what she does, why she does what she does, and how she learned early that being a train wreck on the internet gets her more attention and more interaction than trying to be a I kind of want to say like girl next door kind of vlogger, like an average vlogger. Because like she used to try to come off as being nice and sweet and interesting. And, you know, she used to go to the gym, you know, but she found that didn't get her as large of an audience as just being an absolute train wreck. So we've discussed how she learned early that using controversy and manipulation is a way for her to drive up interaction on her channel, drive up views on her channel, which are good for her channel, but it's also the attention she's craving. And again, she doesn't really care if it's positive or negative attention. She would prefer positive attention, but she'll go with negative attention. If the negative attention is too negative, she goes into a reaction. She reacts to it, and usually reacts to it very poorly. These outbursts that she has are ways, and also the bad behavior that she had before Sala. I will say that her behavior has chilled out a lot since Sala, but her incredibly train wreck behavior leading up to him was not for the most part, but was definitely egged on and encouraged by members of her audience, showing the parasocial relationship she had with her audience and still has with her audience, but also shows the level of control her audience has over her. So it's also showing this like reverse power dynamic. Usually the creator has control over the audience because we're the ones who decide what you see. We're the ones that decide which comments we're going to interact with. You can even go as far as being, we're the ones who like even allow you to post a comment. Like a lot of creators, I think of Anna in this case, will just straight up delete comments that don't serve their narrative. Amber doesn't tend to do that. Maybe she does. I don't know. I've never really commented on her stuff. I don't know if Chantel does because, again, I don't comment on her stuff. But when you're doing a live, it's a little more difficult to remove negative comments than it is when you're dealing with comments after the fact. So either way, typically the creator is the one that has the upper hand in that power dynamic. This is a situation where Foodie is, and for a while there, was just basically led by the nose by her audience. She has a very toxic audience that enjoys watching her do things that are not good for her, or at least encouraging her to do these things. It does not help that Foodie is also very defiant. So if you say, hey, don't do X, that's the first damn thing she's going to go do, right? I think if she had an audience that was more insistent that she do various things to keep herself healthy and to take care of her animals better, and they just kept telling her, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Honest to God, I believe that she would start doing things that were good for her health and take better care of her animals, just because she would think that would make her audience mad. So we've covered that part. We've covered her identity. We've covered the power dynamics. We've covered the attempt of use of manipulation. But she definitely knows how to use sensationalism sensationalism to manipulate her audience to get interactions out of them. And this is a form of adaptation and survival for her online, because everybody likes a train wreck. That's the problem. We all love a good dumpster fire, and Foodie is no different than the rest of us, but she has learned that that is what her audience likes of her most. Since she has moved to Kuwait and since she has been with Salah, she has tried to launch a basically wholesome couples blog with Salah. She has tried to build Salah's gaming channel, which I've watched one thing of his. It's a gaming channel. It's not the most entertaining one, but he's also new, so maybe he'll get better at it the longer he does it. She also tried to, again, reinvent herself as Miriam. So she tried doing less controversial, less rage baity, less raging videos, but she can only do it for so long before somebody says something or sets her off. She has a very poor relationship with her reaction channels, where a lot of people who are commented on will either just straight up ignore reaction channels or interact with them very limitedly. Chantel goes after them. She's got a couple different channels that she just straight up picks fights with, and it's a back and forth thing. And I'm not saying I'm not saying the reaction channel or Chantel is any better than the other one, because, they're both egging each other on in these situations. So there's that. But again, this creates online drama, creates online conflict. People cover it. People want to know what's going on. It's like Jerry Springer. We all like to watch Jerry Springer, didn't we? So when she tried to shift everything to this more wholesome, more Miriam-centered content, she had a huge dip in her views, which was probably a good thing. But she saw the dip. She didn't like it. And so she immediately started doing the things that she knew would get views and would get people back on her channel. And some of that is intentional, like we see with, again, I'll keep going back to this video because it's the most recent one, her claiming her friend is having a problem with their boyfriend cheating on them. So she's trying to manufacture some kind of drama there. Two, also her just not being able to control herself and control her rages online. So that is a less intentional way of her drumming up sensationalism on her channel. I don't think she means to do it. And in those moments, I believe she thinks she's in the right. But usually later, almost always either removes it and or puts up a apology for the behavior, and then usually removes that as well. So things are very, very short-lived on her channel. But this is what she has learned keeps her channel going. And we can say to a certain extent, and it's actually a pretty big extent, this is the internet culture that Foodie draws. I won't say she created it because it was there before Foodie, and it will be there after Foodie. And it affects not just Foodie, it affects all of us. But that internet culture of drama and controversy and the train wreck aspect of people's lives, that is usually rewarded with higher viewer engagement. You'll get more comments, you'll get more eyeballs, you'll get more reactions. And eyeballs and engagement on YouTube equal money. Well, eyeballs equal money. Engagement equals your video gets out more, which will in turn turn into money. So either way, good, bad, and different, the algorithm does not care. And Chantal knows this, right? So it's a form of survival for her channel. But it's also because this is the culture that Chantal's channel exists in. We could say Girl World is this culture, that Girl World is this negative culture, because I would think that these are not necessarily positive attributes that you would want in a culture, but here we are. And to some degree, I fully agree with myself. But there is an aspect to Girl World that isn't necessarily that negative. There is an aspect to Girl World that is kind of hopeful, maybe a little positive. But I mean, in the end, we're all here watching the train wreck together. So here we are. I guess, are we at fault? Are we? We're not the only group on the internet that does this. So no. Are we partaking in it? Yes. We are all here. We are all watching this. We are all watching her. You're either watching her directly or you're watching her through somebody reacting to her. You're still watching. All right. So there we are. This is just a rough for me. I just kind of wanted to go over various aspects as I see them right now. Opinions may change. None of this is written in stone. These are just things I've noticed, observations I make. There is more stuff that I really want to go into when I talk about Foodie, because as much as she is bad at this, she tries so hard, right? She just tries so hard. And it's just not successful at it. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you have made it this far in the video, leave a owl, because I like owls, down in the comments section. Let me know what you guys think. Fill me in on details that I may not have gotten correct or that I may be missing. And that's pretty much all I've got for you guys. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you to my members. Thank you to everybody who's going to hit the thumbs up. Thank you for putting up with my voice. Thank you for liking my white cat, who is asleep now. And I will see everybody in the next one. Bye. And I would react 5,000 hours, and I'd react 5,000 more, just to be the one reacting on your video and uploading commentary. Na 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 na.